Hope everything is going well for all of you so far. I hope that it hasn't been too confusing at this point, and we will continue to have conversations about accessibility as we continue on. But right now, let's talk to, we're going to hear from our UDL alumni. We're very fortunate that we have 4 past UDL Academy participants who are here with us today to tell about their projects. They'll talk a little bit about their experience with UDL, but also about their projects. And so I would like to present first Kelly Kaminsky, just to my left. Kelly Kaminsky is an Associate Professor of American Sign Language here at Onondaga Community College in the World Languages Department. My department, very proud. This is Kathleen Cantone from Mathematics. She's a Professor of Mathematics here at OCC. Tina May is a Professor of Human Services here at Onondaga Community College. And Jane Stam is a Professor of Business here at Onondaga Community College as well, too. And well, I'll pass the mic to them and let them talk a little bit. But the idea, panelists, I would just ask if you could tell a little bit about what your project was and why you chose that project. So what barriers you had identified in your class that you wanted to be able to address, and then how you went about addressing them with your project.
Okay, I'm just going to play this. Right. Okay. All right, I decided to look at where during the semester I kind of lose students' attention. And so usually it's towards the end of the semester when they're just getting tired, and I wanted to add some activities that would just keep them engaged. So I focused on my Unit 10 unit for my Level 2 American Sign Language class. So one thing that I used to do in the class was, one thing I really ended up doing was switching up activities I already did in class to make them just more comfortable for students. Like one project I did was, one thing I did in class was I would bring in, because we talk about clothing and describing clothing. So I would bring in actual clothing to class, and I would make sure that they're really big so anyone can put them on and off. But I realized that probably putting on and off clothing isn't something that most students are comfortable with, or students might not, maybe just have some mobility issues and might be able to get up and participate in the activity. So I ended up changing it to, I brought in a bunch of Build-A-Bears. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Build-A-Bears. So you can see I have a picture on the screen of the students doing this activity. And I brought in a lot of clothing and accessories so they could describe them. So what the students would do is they would sign to each other what clothing to put on the stuffed animal, and then another person would have to describe what they wore before and what they wore now. So, and the students really loved it. And it was something that everyone seemed to really enjoy doing, and they've been continuing to tell me this semester too that they liked that. So I felt like it was a little bit more comfortable. They could sit in groups and they didn't have to like kind of be on display and wearing something in front of everyone. So I really picked that to be just more comfortable for the students. And then another thing I do in that unit is I have students describe their best friend to each other. So they sign to another student what their best friend looks like. And I always just brought colored pencils to class and had people draw, which, you know, not everyone's artistic, which sometimes made it more fun too. But so I decided to try to make it more engaging to them, and they could choose how they wanted to do it. So I have like a picture here of one student who is a really good artist, and so she drew her picture. And another student used the Bitmojis, they're called, so they could really describe the person and create a Bitmoji. And I found that it was really interesting because they got more specific, like is their nose thin, is their nose wide, is, you know, how long is their hair. So this way they were actually able to sign a lot more information to each other, so it made the activity much more engaging, and also just better for them to use a wider range of vocabulary. And this is my terrible Unit 10 quiz I used to give before. As you can see, this is what I would do is I would describe the picture, and they'd have to circle the correct person out of those 4, and then I'd tell them a personality trait. And this was basically, they're all Caucasian. There's not much diverse, people in these pictures, and they're really difficult to actually distinguish from this drawing the differences between them. So I've always hated this quiz. So doing this project gave me an opportunity to think about how I could do this better. So this is my newer quiz. And so I made color copies, and I just, have them not laminated, but in the plastic sleeve, so I can reuse them over and over again. But this way, I was able to use, a wide, diverse cultural pictures and colors and different things like that. So this worked out much, much better. And in this slide, actually, 4 of the individuals on here are deaf. So that also plays into the culture piece. And this was another thing I used for homework, which was like the Guess Who games. And again, there's not much diversity. It's kind of just, I would have to print these off every semester too, so it wasn't very economical to print off all these colored pictures. But I used to do this for an assignment. So instead, to try to make it more engaging, I had them pick, this was my example. So this is a homework example that I did, that they could pick 3 celebrities and play Guess Who, because we play Guess Who in the classroom with the actual games that day. And then for homework, they can pick any 3 celebrities they want. So I gave them a guided chart there to write out the order of identity for how to describe somebody. And then I gave my example of Steve Jobs and also said, what his ethnicity is, and he's actually half Syrian, which a lot of students are surprised about. But I was able to also give them a guided example of how to write up their assignment. So they had the chart to fill it out, and then they had an example of how to actually write out what they're going to sign in class the next day. And so then they played Guess Who, and they could use their phones again to show the person who the picture is of the celebrity. So that worked out a lot better. And then it's really not a great example, but I was trying to really stretch and decide how to, because in American Sign Language, there's a specific order of identity to describe somebody, and they have to know that. So I came up with the word graphic, which really stretching it to say gender, then R's for race, and altitude for height was kind of a stretch, but I figured it kind of sticks in their mind still and they remember it. So, but that's just basically, I saw them writing it on tests, so obviously it must have worked for them to write that out. So that's basically what I did. And then I was also going to share what my colleague, Rebecca Dady, she also did a project, which she'll talk to the next group tomorrow about it. But I helped her out with it, that we, in Unit 4 in our Level 1 class, we usually take the students on a tour. We take them out and about around campus and show them different places around campus, teach them the science for it. And then one semester, Rebecca had a student in class who couldn't physically get up and walk around easily, so she's thinking, what am I going to do for this student? And actually the student ended up dropping out before they got to that unit, but it made her think, I need to have something ready for any semester. So we went around campus and I recorded her signing a tour of the campus, and she has it up on YouTube now with captions. And it's a great way, like I used it this semester because of all the snow days, and so I was able to have the students watch it at home. And also it's a great way for students, if you end up being able to do the activity in class, they can use that to review everything, or it's just another way for them to watch it. So it worked out really well.
I'm Kathy Cantone again. I teach in the math department, and I worked on my project with my colleague Erin Newton, who couldn't be here today. But we both teach statistics, and we were struggling with a lot of different things with our students who have trouble in that course. It's very verbal, so there's lots of times when we will give them problems already worked out, or actually the description of the problem all handed to them so that they don't have to spend a lot of time copying things. But what was happening, what we were discovering a lot of issues with the students. First of all, they were so totally disorganized that they had sheets coming out of folders. I remember one day in the lab, I asked one of the students, just pull out the example we did in class on Wednesday. And it was just, I was just so surprised. And we thought part of their struggle was that they just couldn't organize things, and as it is, the content is difficult for them. So we decided to take one unit, our third unit, which was the unit on probability, which we found to be the most difficult for students, and we got the idea that we would organize things, help them be organized, so we created a packet. And so that was our start of the project, and we said, okay, we'll do Unit 3, we'll do packet, And then once we started that, and I'll show you a little bit about what we did, we said to ourselves, well, that's the third packet, the third unit. So if we really think we have something that might be helpful, why would we wait till the third unit? So the project got larger than life, and we, as everything happened, so we decided, okay, we're just gonna do it all. We're gonna start at the beginning. So what we decided to do is, first of all, we made the packets using things we learned in this academy, things like what's the best kind of font to use, it's most accessible. We also started the packet, so, and you see I'll pass these around, but they're in colors so that they, unit 1 is yellow and unit 2 is pink. So at the end of the day, we give a cumulative final exam in our classes. So at the end of the semester, they're organized by color, they'll know what they did in each unit. So the very beginning of each packet has clear learning outcomes for the unit. So they're going to know right up front, here's what we're going to do in this unit. At the end of the day, this is what you need to know. And then we added this section for them to reflect, and we called it your action plan for success. So that in the beginning, they could write down, here's what I'm going to do, I think, that will help me be successful. And then it became more useful in the future units, because after the Unit 1 exam, things that they struggled with, they said, okay, well, this time maybe I'll do the homework problems, or this time I'll do, make some changes, what I'll do. So I'll pass these around, for you, or maybe someone can help me do that, so you'll see. So we did one for each unit, and we discovered, as I made a few little notes here, that they really, at the end of the day, so I was in last summer's UDL Academy, so I've had 2 semesters since then to use these note packets. And at the end of this semester, I asked my classes, I said, do you think this is helpful? In statistics, we have so many interactive things going on. We do lots of group activities. We try to use real data. We have statistical software that students are using in labs. So there's lots of different things that we're doing, incorporating a lot of these strategies. We're really trying to engage the students. They're doing lots of cooperative learning, and in addition to all the content that we're trying to teach. So I asked them, do you think that these packets are useful? And they were universally raving about it. They felt like it really helped them keep organized. They're sort of skeleton note packets, and they are able to use those for that reason. Like when we're talking in class, they're filling in the notes. But then there's so many other things they're doing also that aren't in those packets. But the organization, I think, is really helping them, and they're trying to tie things together. And the colors, that's just part of me being really type A, but really type A. Like when I do the end of the unit review materials, I'll use the same colors so that they realize, unit 2 is pink, the probability unit, which is the one that we started with, is the green unit. And so that's sort of what we did, and we think we're seeing some success. Anecdotally, we think we're seeing some success. Yes.
And I apologize if this is a super specific question that we should handle offline. How do you deal with, so I'm a scientist, how do you deal with tables and equations with a screen reader?
Well, some of our homework, okay, so a lot of our homework that students do in class, they're doing at the Pearson website. And so most all of those things that are embedded, they're all, they all have the UDL. They're all closed caption. Things are closed caption. There's readers. So that really is very helpful to us that we're using a publisher package for some of that. Yeah, I don't know. Are they going to learn that? I'm not sure. I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's a challenge.
So we won't specifically get into we won't specifically get into how to do that with mathematical equations, but there is a scripting language that does exist for that. In order to you can when you're writing your math equations, it will be such that it'll be able to be read by a screen reader. And so I would recommend in that case probably contacting someone who at your college who does deal with that. Is there, if you're looking like there's nobody that does that? Let's chat then. Let's chat. It's not my area of expertise, but we can find resources. Let's chat at some point today. Today is going to be, we'll chat. We'll work it out.
Hi. You seem to be really focused on color, which of course I love too, but what if someone is blind?
Right. Or colorblind.
Or colorblind, right.
Yeah. Well, the color isn't a necessary thing. I mean, the packets are, the way you see that packet is the way the student gets them. So you see that it says Unit 1 and it talks about the learn. So, I don't really think, that's just me, for my organizational ability or whatever, trying to organize myself. But I don't think, there's nothing intrinsic in the content or anything that the color is important.
Thank you. As I hear Kathy talk about organization and color, I get so excited because I thought it was a very big deal to have fluorescent colored paper to help organize the project that I did. And it was probably more helpful than white paper. But as she was just...
Would you mind stating your name for the...
Oh, I'm sorry, Tina May. Thank you. As she was speaking, I just realized, why do I do this in my third unit and not the first, second, fourth, and fifth? It makes so much sense to do it throughout the course. So my point there is, every time you hear about UDL, there's something new to add, including the benefits of color. And by the same token, one of the reasons I'm coming through a second time 2 years later is I know what I don't know, and there's so much more to improve, and then some. But the project I'd like to tell you about today is a unit from our Introduction to Human Services course here. It's obviously the first course that Human Services students take. And what I found as we went through the original training as I went through the training 2 years ago, was that I kept hearing, take something that's not going well, take something that's boring or not losing interest. Well, I had too much ego to think anything was boring. I thought everything was interesting in my class. But when I got very honest, I thought, oh no, Unit 3 is very boring. We go from beginning with why people are in the field, what experiences they've had, their values, their beliefs, and then, developmental theory and theory of needs, things that each of the students could relate to. Until I got to Unit 3, where we look at tangible listening skills and social work practice skills. And suddenly we went from things that people could relate to in general to the hardcore, duty to warn, confidentiality, legal laws, things that our students, despite their best intentions, didn't necessarily have a lot of relatable experience about. And did they fall off in interest and attention and probably in success. So that was a project that I chose to look at. And we went from a standard 33-question multiple choice assessment at the end of this unit and just a lot of dry discussion of what's in the book to a brand new approach. And my approach is a packet. It is a professional identity packet. Because what I realized was students weren't relating to these important legal concepts and responsibilities. It seemed to have nothing to do with, I want to help people, or I want to give back to the world, or I want to do it better than had been done for me. So the packet that I created had 8 separate experiential pages that allowed students to come from a point of, I want to help people, and move toward a point where they could already envision themselves as the professional they were growing to be, and thereby learn the concepts in a way that had meaning to them. And it was interesting, the best part of my packet, which now accounts for 80% of their grade in this unit. They still take the standard 33-question multiple choice test because it's a good test, but only 20% of it counts toward their grade. The packet, which really, requires the most work, because it's associated with their test grade, really gets their attention. So the very best part of it is the first page. And it came about in a conversation I had with Chris, like the last 30 seconds as we were starting to walk away. We came up with the idea of a guided meditation to begin this packet. And basically what we do is, as a class, there's a lot of forewarning. There's an opportunity for students to not participate if they like, but so far they all choose to. And we do a 20-minute guided meditation that I lead, where we really have them envision their career path from where they're sitting in their chair today all the way through to the point of retirement or winning the lottery or whatever might take them out of the field. And we literally have them envision each step of the way and envision the lives they're going to touch, the people's faces, their emotions, the outcomes. And what they do at the end of that is to simply create one page of a reflection of that. What they have to say is relatively irrelevant. The fact that they document the experience is what's most important. They then go on in the packet. They listen to guest speakers. I have 2 graduates of our program, one who is now one of our adjunct professors, and one who was the first student I ever gave an F to, who years down the road has received a SUNY Chancellor's Award for her work in public policy. So I love her coming in to speak. She's becoming very political, and they'll be voting for her in a few years, I'm sure, as she goes forward. So she's a wonderful role model. They write a page about what they've learned from there. They do still cover those other terms that used to be so boring, and they do it really on their own in terms of reading the chapter and identifying the terms. So they do that, but they pick the 2 that were most important to them. They pick the 2 that are going to shape their career the most in each one of those little written assignments. Then they did 2 other things. They interview 2 individuals in their own life about their professional identity. They don't have to be professionals in the field. They can be the person who delivers the mail, the person who drives the bus, Uncle Joe, who worked in a restaurant. Just 2 very relatable people, whoever they choose, and they really discuss what is professional identity. They describe it to those people, and then they hear it back. And again, they just do a small summary of that. They also interview each other. Again, they're practicing interviewing skills by finding out, what did you find out from your 2 outside sources? What did you find out? And then the very last page is an opportunity to create a personal artifact that symbolizes and represents who they are striving to be in their career. For some people, it's a recovery chip, because many of our students are in recovery. I had a student come in and bring little plant cuttings for the entire class to talk about the impact of growth and evolution. I've literally had 2 people get tattoos. I thought, I hope you want this profession, okay. And fortunately, they're old enough that we didn't have to worry about parents being concerned, but I thought, okay, that's a commitment, all right. One of the other things we did with this packet is I have come to offer extra credit in a variety of different forms anywhere I can. And if they turn their packets in early, there's significant points. I literally went to 10 points added on for every day it's turned in early. And, you have people are starting to race each other now to see at what rate they can do that. Because it has been my experience that nobody who works ahead to get extra credit is anyone who I have to be concerned about getting a falsely inflated grade, but it also gives some empowerment to folks who might otherwise struggle. After 2 years of doing this, I've had the first class I started it with graduate this year. I'm happy to say they're still referencing it. And ironically, 4 semesters later, one of the chapters is ethics that they read about. I came across one of my larger cheating scandals. It was only involving 2 people, but son of a gun, one person copied the other person's ethics terms and homework completely word for word with all the spelling errors and all of the examples that didn't work. And I thought the irony was very interesting. So while the person who did the copying had other serious issues that needed to be dealt with from a disciplinary point, the young man who allowed his work to be copied was so shy and so good and just so afraid of saying no to the nice popular girl sitting next to him who had made him feel more comfortable in class. And he was just petrified, shaking, tears, crying, concerned that he'd never be able to transfer. And as I sat and met with him, I asked if he would consider sitting in on one of our other classes during the unit for assertiveness. And in fact, he did. He sat in on that class, met with the instructor after doing that unit with her, and the instructor assured me that he had learned everything that we would hope, and he just came back very thankful and very grateful and was deathly concerned his grade would be impacted. And I said, well, that doesn't strike me as how we want to apply ethics, does it? You know, what have you learned about assertiveness and those kinds of things? So, so I'm happy to say that even when there are opposite outcomes, so far it's been working well. And I'm just looking forward to freshening it up. I have done the things like, you know, make sure forms are color-coded, checklists, and I found when I would give out instructions in class, I assumed that if we went over it once and then we went over it twice, that would work. Boy, that was a silly assumption a long time ago. Coming through this training and working with this packet allowed me to see if every day we start out with 5 minutes of questions, it's helpful. If every day we go back over it, if the last 5 or 10 minutes of class, people are allowed to speak in pairs and small groups with a little bit of extra credit incentive. Gee, if you write up what the person next to you just told you, 2 more points on your test at the end, those kinds of things. I found so much more was clarified. And even I didn't realize how many times questions had to be asked in the same room before the answers were clear to everyone. So I've been very pleased with it and liked it so much in the results that it's time to freshen a whole lot more up. So anything I can answer or say? Let me pass it right on. Thank you.
I'm Jane Stam, and I did the first year of the UDL. Sorry, I thought you were talking to me. And my big thing is I'm a visual learner. So, and I'll date myself, I've been here 38 years. The initial technology, we had the class were one of those roller things that had the plastic that you wrote on, and that was the extent of technology that was available at that time. And over the years now, so much technology has come into place. And about 5 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, I started teaching online. And one of my things was, how do I incorporate the things that I do in my face-to-face classes in my online class? And one of there were 3 things that I got out of the First Academy. One is the best font to use is Arial, because it creates the least problems for people with different types of disabilities. Second, use mutated colors. Don't use bright colors, because people with sensory issues, you use those fluorescent reds, the fluorescent greens, it kind of throws them into orbit. So I have gone through my courses and I have really looked at the fonts that I use, the colors that I use. And interesting, I teach Excel for business right now. Those are the 2 main, the beginning and the advanced course. And they do projects and they do different things. And the first time they do a project, I open them, it's like, whoa, I mean, I got purple, I've got red, I've got green. And we talk about it in class, and I'll say to them, that looks really nice to you. And sometimes I can't even read the text because the color is so overpowering. And what I'll say to them is, you know, this is something to think about when you get into business. You're going to be doing these things to give to other people. So think about what font are you using? Can people read it? And 2, be really careful of the colors that you use. And sometimes less is more, you know, and I say to them, when you use your colors, use your mutated colors. But the major thing that has been a lifesaver for me out of the First Academy is ensemble. Because what I do is I create videos. And so what I'll do is, especially when there are very difficult areas, what I'll do is I'll create a video that walks them through. And what they can do is they can see my Excel spreadsheet on my computer, and then they can hear me talking to explain all the different things. And it has been a lifesaver because I teach a 5-week course. I teach a 10-week course. I teach a 15-week course. And then this semester I had to teach a weekend course, which is a 5-week course. And I thought to myself, how do I compact 15 weeks into 5 weeks? And when I started with the 15 weeks, I had links sending them to all these different places to look at information. And I thought, okay, in 5 weeks, there's absolutely no way they're going to be able to do all this stuff. So what I did is I sat back and I said, okay, the first module, which was just an introduction to ribbons and all that kind of stuff in Excel, is I did 3 20-minute videos. And what I did is I brought the ribbon up, I showed them all the different things, and that replaced all these different links to all these different sites. I did for the second thing, which was more advanced features, the same thing. I did 3 20-minute videos in Ensemble. And the other thing is they get closed captioned. So now I have the idea that I'm covering the compliance thing. And what I was able to do then was to take this thing that normally took maybe 4 weeks of time and compress it into a week. And that gave me so much more time to do those things that I really wanted to do. And if you get comfortable with Ensemble, there's a lot of things you can do. One of the things I did for the first time this semester is, one of the things that's very difficult for students is to do a nested if function in Excel. So in my face-to-face class, what I did is I broke them into 4 groups, and I said, okay, each one of you has to create a nested if. And then each group put that on the board. And then we as a class critiqued each one. Was it correct? What was it missing? What should we have done? And then, thank goodness, I took pictures of each of theirs. And then what I did is I did an Ensemble video. And I said, this is something that we can't do because of the thing, but this is what I did in the online, in my face-to-face class. And I put the picture of each of the groups, ones that they put on the board, and then I critiqued them with them. I said, okay, so when we looked at this one in class, this was missing the comma. This was missing the closing thing. And I've really incorporated Ensemble so much in my class, and it has opened the world for what I can do. And very interesting, the 5-week weekend course, which I was just saying, I don't know how we're going to do this. I always say to them, what do you like? At the end of the semester, I always say to them, what do you like? What didn't you like? And one of the students said, oh my goodness, I felt like I was in the room with a teacher. You know, it was like we came from doing this, very distant thing, and I've gotten really positive things. And it's like, I really like hearing your voice. I really like seeing you explain how to do this. And I do it as I do in my face-to-face class. And doing the Ensemble really opens up the door so much to how you show things to students.
I see they have an Ensemble video website. How did you go about teaching yourself how to do everything you just did?
Slow. 4 years ago was the first time I even heard of Ensemble. So that was my major takeaway from the UDL Academy. And I worked with Chris. I worked with Laura Matichek. And honestly, at the beginning, it was like, whoa. But I have now come to be pretty good. I'm doing a sheet for her that kind of steps her through the directions of you do this, you do this, you do this, and stuff like that. So now it's much easier, but I have to be honest, the first few times it's mind-boggling. And it's also very time-consuming, because to do a 20-minute video took me hours, because you get to here and you make a mistake. And the thing about it is, Ensemble is it's not easy to edit. So it's not where you can say a third of the way through, I did this, let me cut that out. So what I found myself is I did it, and then if I really found I was doing things I didn't want to do, it was like I had to trash it and start all over. The only place that's relatively easy to edit is that very last thing. When you do your Ensemble thing, what it will look like is, for us that are older, that old-fashioned negative for pictures. So what you'll see is you'll see that scrolling across the screen, and then you can click on each one to see how each piece looks. And what I found is I could grab that last piece on the film and delete that. The only problem was sometimes it deleted the last 3 minutes of the one before that I really wanted in there. So it's not that flexible, but it has been a game changer for what I do in my classes.
I had a follow-up question, Jane, about using Ensemble. Over here, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Are you're creating the videos in Ensemble, so there's like a screencast recording feature
Yes.
in there? And then
Yes.
also, is there a captioning feature
Which,
as
well, it's a
well?
two-step process. So the first step is where you create the video, and then the second step is to go through this sequence to send it to be closed captioned. And when you initially embed it in your class, it may not be closed captioned. As soon as it becomes closed captioned, it flows into the course as a closed caption video.
I just want to thank you for putting all that effort into your online class, because I've taken a lot of online courses for my master's degree that I'm still working on, and hearing feedback from other students who have taken online courses, they can be really, really frustrating. I've been in so many courses with so little feedback from the professor. You're just reading a lot of times poorly written materials with lots of typos, and it's so frustrating. You feel very isolated, and so that's just, I love hearing what you're doing, and getting that feeling that you're in a classroom is so important, and I have not had that feeling at all in any of my courses online, so thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
Jane, did you buy a license for Ensemble, or is it available through the college here?
It's available through the college. Chris, I'm going to rat you out. Because I was in the first one, we had a little bit of extra money, so they actually gave me my own version of Ensemble, and they gave me a headset. So I do everything at home. I spend hours at night and on the weekends and stuff, so I don't have to physically be chained to OCC to do it.
Camtasia, right?
No, Ensemble.
Oh, okay. So okay, sounds good.
Did you? Well, maybe you did. Maybe you gave me Camtasia. Sorry. Okay, sorry. But you can access the Ensemble from home. There's a link so that you can go into it, you can record it at home, and you can upload it and do everything that you need to do from home. You don't have to be chained to your office.
Can I just clarify a couple of technology things related to this? So Ensemble is our hosting service where we host the videos. So Aaron, you're probably familiar with Ensemble, correct? And I'm pretty sure it's out of SU. They're related to it somehow or another. But they're the host for the videos, for the actual videos themselves, the files. And then we embed them into Blackboard. Most likely you're probably using Camtasia to do your screencasting, if I remember correctly.
No, I do it. I do everything in Ensemble.
Everything in Ensemble now. Okay, it must be a new feature. Okay, excellent, excellent. And the captioning service, if I understand correctly, I think it was AST Caption Sync, if I remember correctly, is the name of it. But they actually work. The video itself gets submitted from within Blackboard directly to the captioning service, and they return it in a very timely manner. That's correct. But all the captions themselves work within Ensemble itself.
Chris, you actually close caption through Ensemble, but then when you embed that video in, it grabs the closed caption from Ensemble.
Can you follow up on that, Chris? Is Camtasia available through OCC also?
It may be through the teaching center. If you contact Tim Haskell, I think it is, he can let you know. We at one point we had licenses in the teaching center, and if not there, just right next door to here is our instructional design and delivery department, and they probably have it here as well too in the lab that's here.
Chris, let me just follow up. I found Camtasia very, very difficult to use. I found it much easier to do things in Ensemble.
Quick question. We don't have Ensemble at Upstate. Is this like VoiceThread? No. Okay. So it's, okay. I'm having a hard time. It's more like YouTube. Okay. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for our panel? So I had one question if nobody else had any, but were there any other questions? I wanted to ask real quick, and we'll take a break in just a couple minutes here. I was going to ask Jane. You may have noticed Jane and Tina on our alum panel, but they're also here as part of the academy. I was going to ask if you could just, in maybe 1 or 2 minutes at most, each of you just say briefly why. Why would you like to be here again, or what is your plan for being here? What was the rationale behind why you wanted to be here again?
I'm going back to a course that I taught 30 years ago, and I'm putting it online for the first time for me. So most of the courses I initially created, I created in Angel, and then they filtered over and I tweaked them and stuff like that. I've never actually created a course from scratch in Blackboard. So I really wanted to do this, so from the ground floor running, I was thinking of all these things as I developed that course and how to input that information.
And 2 reasons for me. As I said, the more I have come to know, the more I realize I don't know. And I don't like the sense of feeling incredibly not competent when I could be about evolving technologies and changes. But from a really different direction, going through the UDL Academy 2 years ago fundamentally changed my life physically. And I did want the opportunity to share, now that I think of it. I have arthritic symptoms that I had not had diagnosed 2 years ago. Very short life expectancy in my family, so none of my immediate relatives lived nearly as long as I already have. So I didn't know what kinds of things would be coming down the pike normally. And I had been living with stiffness and I have a very sedentary lifestyle. I remember saying to someone, if I could take 10 years off my life and not be bothered about exercising, I would. I mean, I just love being sedentary, which, you know, is not good for mobility issues. When I came through the UDL Academy, and I saw that concept of the wheelchair ramp not being a wheelchair ramp, but a ramp for anyone, I can't tell you the light bulbs that went off in my mind. I started looking at those accessibility options. And to be honest, I grew up thinking that you only used a ramp if you couldn't use stairs. That you only parked, you know, in an accessibility parking spot if you absolutely could never park somewhere else. I didn't know the universality of access issues, and that there was a reason those things were there to benefit a number of people. And so when I sat through this training, my mind was just spinning, and I got thinking about, I hadn't walked across the bridge here at OCC in 5 years. It was too painful to walk. It was getting more and more difficult for me not to go across a classroom, but my life had become very limited. And I had never had a diagnosis. I thought if you took Tylenol, you were a wimp. I mean, I don't know where these ideas came from. But my point is, I sat here thinking, do you mean to tell me I can go to restaurants, I can go to other places if I just walk up the ramp? And, you know, yes, I could. And so then it occurred to me I could have a conversation with my doctor, who said, oh, yeah, you definitely have arthritis in your knees and your ankles, and I can hear it, you know. And he said, would you want to go to physical therapy? I thought, could I? Would I? Well, the physical therapist was such a wonderful educator. The more she taught me about it, and she said, and Tylenol's not a crime, it's all right to take it, wait till you get into Advil. And it made such a difference in my life. And I thought, if this has made a difference for me, there's a lot more to learn. But I want to add to that to say that she referred me to a podiatrist who said, you can walk across the bridge at OCC if you have the right shoes. Well, I'll tell you, I have 15 pair of Keen sandals now. I'd wear them to a wedding, I'd wear them to a funeral, I'd wear them anywhere. It made all the difference in the world. All this information that was out there, but I never knew I needed it. I never knew that it was all right to even acknowledge what was troublesome in order to get some of those answers. And can I tell you that 6 months ago I bought a house so that I would have more mobility, so there'd be just a few stairs to get more exercise in, so that there was a neighborhood to walk in, because I was really getting ready to be the elderly lady shut in this nice little place in the country where, you know, someday I guess I wouldn't be able to live there. When my world opened up because of this awareness And because of just the general information that maybe you would have gotten if your parents had arthritis, you know, I don't know. But when my world started to open up, it is a night and day difference now. So it's changed my life on a daily basis. I can't believe it. My dog is about 3 pounds less heavy as well, so he's appreciating the benefits. But it has changed my life to know that accessibility is for everyone and benefits everyone. And I can't wait to see how my life changes after this one. So thank you for hearing that part. I appreciate it.
And Kathy and Kelly, did you have anything you wanted to add at all in terms of anything else that you wanted to say at all? How, if you consider applying UDL to any of your other courses, or if there's any other thoughts before we leave?
Well, actually, I have done that. I also teach calculus, so I have packets in calculus as well now, and so I have expanded it. And one of the challenges that I'm now experiencing, especially with the statistics, is that we really are moving into an area in statistics education where the whole world is full of large data. I mean, large data, like a data set of, 50,000 entries. And that's what we really need our students to be able to work with and analyze. So now the challenge for us is we really need to be exposing our students to that, and how we're going to work with that data, and what kind of technology we can incorporate into the class. So it's a real challenge, and I'm still using some of the concepts that I learned in the academy to help us make that usable and accessible to everybody. So it just goes on in everything you do once you learn the things.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like basically you can't shut your brain off. I remember when I took it last summer, it's like you're just going here and there and there, and they try to think of everything until you can just narrow it down. Okay, let me just focus on one unit. But then even as you're doing that, that was unit 10. So as it was going along, I kept thinking of more and more ways to make my class more accessible. Like I've added more videos of, like, I sign an example of a narrative in class. It's like, well, why not record that and have it on Blackboard for students to be able to see that. Students miss class so they can see that. Or, really we're making it so that students don't have any excuse not to get things done. But also even listening to the guest speaker yesterday, it's just the thought of going into your classroom and being ready for anything. You don't have to pull out plan B or C if you just already have incorporated in your plan A. So then any student, it's accessible to everyone that walks in your classroom.
Thank you very much to each of our panelists. Thank you, Kelly Kaminsky. Thank you, Kathleen Cantone. Thank you, Tina May, and thank you, Jane Stam, as well too, for sharing such great information with us and for taking the time out of your very busy schedules to be with us here as well too. Let's take a pause for a break right now, and we'll come back in about, let's say, 1 o'clock. Let's come back around 1 o'clock or so, and we'll continue from there. Thank you very much.